Wait. Again, please let me know if you can hear me clearly over here. Okay, you can see the whole whiteboard, which is good. Only have to surround here. One moment, please. Wait. Again, I'll begin at the 4-minute mark, as I always do. So let me just get to my tablet to check the live chat. I have to wipe this all out anyway, so I'll be doing that in the first few minutes before the 4-minute mark is there. We need to charge this soon, but okay. Let me know if you can hear me clearly, please. Thank you very much. Okay, let me check over here. Who's in the live chat? Ninja Viking is here. I see a lot is here, which is good. Okay, so put these things aside. Yes, so my other, I'm not lose my other mouse over here. So I hope you've been following my live streams past week, because I've been doing a lot of whiteboard sessions, and I'll continue to make whiteboard sessions for you, because I see it works well in teaching. Hold up. All right. All right, so let me see how many minutes I'm in. I still have 1 more minute to go, which is good. That will begin. So let me just crossing the Jordan. Let's talk about today, crossing the Jordan. Well, let me write this much better. It's G over here. Crossing the Jordan. All right. Let me see the live chat. See, Dion is here also. Good to have you here, Dion. Let's see if it's right at the 4-minute mark. Yes, it's exactly 4 minutes. So, all right. Crossing the Jordan. Now, this is a parable about crossing the Jordan. Now, if you know scripture, so I'm going to draw it very quickly over here. So this is the Nile Delta. Let's see. All right. By the way, can you see this clearly over here? Let me know in the live chat, please. Deserts. It's the land of Canaan. And here you have the things so that you can see it. The reason I put it like this is because I want the whole whiteboard to be visible. But okay. Okay, well, let me see if I can zoom it in for a moment. Hold on. No, that's way too much. Okay. So for now, I'm going to zoom it in like this. All right? Now, crossing the Jordan. Now, this is what we today call the Middle East. In ancient times, all this was Africa, called the land of Ham, and later also Al-Qabulan, by the Ishmaelites. It's during the 19th century that the British Empire said, no, this part of Africa is not called the Middle East. So, in ancient times, all this was Africa. Now, we know of the ancient Israelites, when they became a nation and they were under bondage in Egypt, the Heavenly Father sent Moses, and through 10 plagues, the Heavenly Father rescued them out of Egypt, and they crossed the Red Sea. Now, some people debate on whether it was over here or over there, and they end up over here. It doesn't matter, they crossed the Red Sea. And Egypt's military came after them and was drowned in it. So the first thing you had was crossing the Red Sea. Then then they were in the wilderness, going around in circles, until after 40 years, and it's actually 2 generations, but according to the Bible, 1 generation, but because in that time, the generation was really the descendant of someone, but in actual accounts, a generation is 20 years, so in 2 generations, actually, they managed to enter the promised land under Joshua, and after they crossed the Jordan River, that is when the real fight began. Now, there were fights that were over here, and Edom also opposed them. Remember that, because Edom was hostile to the new situation of Egypt, was bankrupt and broken, and the Israelites were the richest and wealthiest nation on the earth. So the people in Canaan already knew they were finished then. You know, the Israelites thought that they were losers, but that generation had their issues. So eventually they crossed the Jordan, and it's then that they were able to take the promised land, actually inhabit the blessing. Now, let me zoom out again. Hold on. Hold on, let me zoom out. Well, all right. Now, so you had 2 things that happened first. So let me write them over here. First, they crossed the Red Sea. Then you have the wilderness. And then they crossed the Jordan. And across Jordan, you have the... My God, why are people calling me doing a live stream, man? Hold on. I am doing a live stream now. Call me back later. All right. Promised land. Okay? Now, can you all read this? Well, I want to know for sure. Let me know in the live chat. And my apologies for being called again during the live stream. And by the way, make sure the resolution of your YouTube is on high. Because if your resolution of streaming it, if your resolution of your browser is low, you may see it vaguely. Make sure the resolution is 480p. Can you all see this clearly? Let me know. Okay. Now, crossing the Red Sea is about, because I'm going to write down over here, deliverance from violence. All You're born again. It happens once, you're forever saved. But then, you have to be cleansed. So, once you begin to operate in faith, you realize that the world wants to keep you back. And violence is the main thing the world uses to keep you back. Both collective violence, government violence, all types of violence. Now, once you realize that everything in heaven and earth is spirit-based, you realize that violence is spirit-based also. So once you cast out the spirit of violence, then that's when you cross the Red Sea. You have to realize that violence is negativity, spirit negativity that works out in the physical. This is what you need to understand. So once you understand this, that violence has a spirit root, you cast out the spirit root, the spirit of violence. Once you cast out the spirit of violence from around you, violence can come near you. Physical violence cannot just come near. People can be angry with you, people can be upset with you, but they can't just come close to you and talk to you dirt in your face, whatever anymore. You've cast out the spirit of violence. You don't have that access point, that wounds around you that gives a negative tension and easy access to you. That's crossing the Red Sea. Okay? And for a believer, it's quite important to cross the Red Sea. Because if you don't cross the Red Sea, that means that you're operating just like an unbeliever. You're stuck. People can threaten you. People can set you up. So, and remember, when the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, what happened? The whole Egyptian military came out to prevent this from happening. Now, just like back then, there was resistance amongst Egyptians. And Egypt represents the world. There was resistance from the world against the Israelites being freed from slavery. The same way when you are about to realize that violence is not a natural thing, it's not a good thing, but it's a spirit pollution that plays out. The moment you begin to realize this, you'll notice that the people around you become uncomfortable. The people can experience that, wait a minute, this individual won't back down. Before you were born again, before you had any knowledge of Christ and the spirit world, you would just get along and take the escalation of the masses. But now, it's different. So, remember, before the Egyptians crossed the Red Sea, the wealth transfer happened. So, in the spirit world, the moment you're born again, you're now in a position to withdraw strength from the Heavenly Father directly. Because now that you're born again, you have the Spirit inside of you. So the Holy Spirit is the projected presence of the Father inside a believer. So once this happens, you're born again, and now you have a leverage, the world can handle this leverage. So they'll try to kill you or to shut you down permanently. And once you realize that the only way to get rid of the violence is to do it on the spirit level, is when you cross the Red Sea. After you cross the Red Sea, violence is shut down from around you. Violence can still happen to other people and environment around you, but it can't happen to you directly. They can only seek to violate you at a distance. That's when the wilderness phase begins. Okay? And this is something to realize, is that most believers are stuck in the wilderness throughout this lifetime. The wilderness is between you being free from violence and actually being dominant on the earth. Okay? The Jordan is a crossing between when you operate in dominion. All right? That's what the Father wants you to be, to operate in dominion on the earth. So, before you were born again in the world, you were stuck in cycles of death. That's why you were stuck into, like everyone in the world was. You became born again, you were recreated, you crossed the Red Sea, that crossed out the spirit of violence, and now that folks realize that their situation changed, now suddenly people that normally have no issue with you suddenly have issues with you. Now hell breaks loose. Why? Because now you are a dominant factor. You're no longer someone they can just ignore or refuse to talk to. They have to deal with you because now you have impact. And they're going to fight this impact as much as they can. And it's during this season that you will realize that everything in life must be done through faith. So once you realize that everything must be done on a spirit level first, once it gets through to you, that's when you've crossed the Jordan. And after crossing the Jordan, it's just a one-time event. Now you've graduated into sainthood. So this is your graduation. And after graduating into sainthood, there's no turning back at all. There's no way of turning back anyway. Once you graduate into sainthood, now you operate in dominion. Now, operating in dominion does not mean that you won't face any difficulties during this lifetime, or you won't face any attacks. It simply means that now you're on top of all difficulties, instead of just being a set of difficulties being on top of you. Now, before I further continue, is this illustration over here clear to you? Let me know in the live chat, please. Is this clear to you? Let me know. If it's not clear, let me know now. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. Let me check how much is zoomed in. Okay, it's perfectly. All right. So, again, born again, you're saved, you're righteous, you're not a sinner anymore, you've been recreated. But as a believer, you're not a saint yet. Sainthood is when you cross the Jordan, when you graduate into walk, when your mindset is changed so dramatically that you only walk in power directly. Everything you do on a spirit level first, then you take physical steps in the world around you. That's graduating into sainthood. And there is a war against the saints, because once you operate in dominion, you are ahead of everything that comes against you. All right? Now, let me give an example to you. Let me turn the other side. Let's say now that there were people that, let's say you didn't act the way people wanted you to act. Okay, let me zoom it out, okay, because I don't have to keep it zoomed in. Okay, so let me check. Okay. Let's say now that you did not behave the way people want. Let's say you were a 5-year-old child, and when you felt uncomfortable, you just expressed it, but you just walked away. Let's say there were adults over there who felt upset, they felt hurt, and now they felt anger towards you, so you were a little child. You grew older and kept reminding that time you were a 5-year-old that just walked away when you were uncomfortable. This may sound silly and stupid, but you have adults like that. They develop anger towards a child, which you cannot justify, but keep insisting on it. Now, this anger of those people and all the bad stuff they decreed about you hindered you in life. So you may have faced a lot of difficulties in social connections, or you may have faced financial difficulties. You may have faced a lot of difficulties and you didn't realize why. People cursed you with their decrees. They were bitter, they were upset, and they enforced bad things upon you. And they haven't repented. Now, before you were born again, all those things could easily happen to you because you had no actual protection. And by the way, any child can easily be victimized because they're just children. Till your mid-teens, on the spirit level, you're not really that advanced as a being yet. Now, in your early teens, you can be, when your sexuality is developing, you can do spiritual things, but you're not really that firm yet. Okay? Now, let's say you become born again. The moment you're born again, you're not directly part of the darkness anymore because you're recreated. Okay? You are recreated by the presence of Heavenly Father being downloaded into you. Now, that presence of Heavenly Father inside of you, which you call Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is not a separate entity. It's not a separate feminine entity like some cults claim. The Holy Spirit is the projected presence of Heavenly Father inside of you. All right? So, once you're born again, now you have a leverage. And now that you have a leverage, the people around you will notice that something's different about you now. They can't figure out why. And soon, they'll try to figure out what's different. Now, mind you, you're still stuck. There's still bondage, but you have a leverage. Now, they can't handle you having this leverage. So when they begin to put you in your place and try to show you how they feel about you, now you realize that, okay, there's violence against you. And now you realize sooner or later, I hope soon, that their attitude towards you, how they think about you, affects you. So this whole idea that what others think about you is not your business, or all this whole thing that, don't worry, other people think about you. Look, you shouldn't be obsessed with what other people think about you, no. But how people think and feel about you, it will affect you. Ask any business owner where they care what people think about them. They may say no just to appear tough, but in practice, they are very well concerned how people think about them. Because if people think bad about them, they will come to the business and they will go bankrupt. If people think bad about your parents and you're associated with your parents, they also think bad about you because you're associated with something they can't stand. So how people think about you not only affects your social relationships, also affects you as your life on a daily basis. Because when people meditate negatively about you, they generate negative shocks out of their energy field into the Earth's atmosphere, and those negative shocks will affect you. All right? So even on a spirit level, it affects how people think about you. So the moment you realize this, and you realize that you have to be, and you realize people have no right to will whatever they want, because the world tells you nobody owes you anything, that people have free will, they can will what they will. Once you realize that's not true, there's only the will of Heavenly Father that's legitimate, you decide, okay, nobody has the right to think and feel however they want about me. They don't. It's nowhere supported in Scripture. So once you realize that, and you deal with the violence directly, you cross the Red Sea. After crossing the Red Sea, suddenly, all the negative investments of those people that have issues against you, suddenly there's a backfire. They encounter a wall. Let's say now suddenly, after you cross out the spirit of violence, now some colleagues at work start avoiding you. Because you stop shit behind your back, but now that they encounter you, they feel a wall. Because what happens, let me tell you what happened. I'm going to illustrate it to you. And, you know what? I'm not going to move this over here because it's already clear. I'm going to illustrate to you what's exactly happening. By the way, do you follow me till now? Do you follow the example I'm giving? Because it's important for you to understand this. All right, so I'm going to use, let's say this is you. Let's say this is you when you were still an unbeliever. I'm using a male example, but this can count over females, okay? So you're part of the world and you had some pollution here and there in your energy fields, those two wounds of the world. And you had bad thing also, there was some pollution in you. So because of pollution, as you can see, the negative vibrations of others will easily just affect you, just like that. Now, those that are pagan, well, let me show it over here. Those that are pagan have it like this. So energy field still fractured, but on top of the energy field, they have this demon excrement, as I explained in the previous live stream, that's on top of the energy fields. By the way, watch my previous live streams I made this week, because I'm going to explain this to you. So, I'm going to write it over. This shows unbeliever. This is a pagan. A pagan is an advanced unbeliever. Alright? So the advanced unbeliever, they have a paranormal charm, and what happens, the negative tension just bounces off, but the attention is still around them. And it doesn't change that they on the inside still have wounds here and there. So this is how it is with the unbeliever. Because they have wounds here and there in the energy fields, and because they're not born again, they have no security, any negative tension, negative meditation just affect them. The advanced unbeliever who use paranormal charm, their attention remains around them. So that's the leverage they have. So this is just a leverage for relief. All right? Let's say now you become a believer. Let's say you're saved. Okay? This is how it goes. If you just, I'm going to draw several silhouettes over here, and then I'm going to explain it. So just be patient with me. I know my drawings aren't the best right now, but just bear with me, okay? Okay, so this is before the Red Sea crossing. It's after the Red Sea, which is the wilderness. It's after the Jordan. All right, so hold on. Okay, well, let me check. Now, so you become a believer now. This is the first stage as a believer. This is the second stage. This is the third stage. This is the fourth stage. That is when you are into sainthood. All right. Now, again, let's draw your energy field. It's off the Red Sea. All right. The wilderness is going to be similar. All right, so again, when you're born again, but you haven't crossed out the spirit of violence yet, you haven't crossed out spirit of violence, interesting, spirit of violence be gone from me. In Jesus Christ's name, it's not just that, it's just actually your mind improves and see that everything has spirit origin, that violence is spirit origin, and the only way to deal with violence and tragedy is by casting it out. When that happens, that's off cross the Red Sea. Before crossing the Red Sea, just like over here, things can easily just affect you, just as if you were an unbeliever. All right? The moment you cross the Red Sea, your energy field thickens up. Okay? And look at this. What happens when energy field thickens up? Ooh! The tension falls off. You will still feel it. And you may still have some wounds here and there in your energy field, here. But because the energy field is thickened up, there's a bound, there's a wall that they encounter. You get me? When you're in the wilderness, the world's going crazy against you. Woo! All crazy. Because beforehand, when you were an unbeliever, things could just affect you, and people get the relief at your expense. Also, when you just became a believer, they know something was different, but they could still blackmail you and harm you like that. Now that you cross the Red Sea, your energy will so thickened up, it's like they encounter a wall. And then they will lose it on you. And it's when they lose on you, you realize, man, I need to occupy it fully. And then you cross the Jordan. And once you cross the Jordan, you'll be so dominant in operating on the spirit level, you should be on top of all the violence, all the negativity around you. Now, is this all clear to you? I visualize it for you. Let me know in the live chat. Now, let me zoom in a little bit so it remains focused for you. Okay, hold on. All right. Now, yes, the thing is, when you were in this condition everyone is born into, fractured in a fallen state. Some unbelievers realize that they need some spiritual aid, so they do witchcraft like magic, and you get this artificial layer on top of the energy field, which is the demonic excrement that demons emit after feeding off of human waste. I explained in a previous live stream. And this hinders things around them. Remember, the pagan only has relief. This is only a leverage again. It doesn't mean they're delivered. Only believers can be delivered. Now, crossing the Red Sea, that is, right, this, Deliverance. Because the only thing the world has, and the only thing the demonic realm has, is violence and tricks. Now, other concepts of the spirit of violence cannot directly affect you. It can still affect the people around you, and they can still use tricks to trick you into a cycle. That they can still do. The wilderness is briefly after crossing the Red Sea, after being delivered, that the world thinks, hold on a minute. So let me give another example. As I said before, people, your colleagues or people around you talk shit behind your back, or they used to look angry at you. Or maybe your employer often looks stern at you, like I don't like you. But now suddenly your employer can't do this anymore. Anytime your employer walks in, he kind of feels shocked when he sees you. And he kind of forces eye contact. Before that, the employer would just walk around, look at you with disdain, with contempt, just move on. Because, hey, he thought I can fire you, so you need me, so behave. But now, it's your employer who's watch out for you. Your employer doesn't even dare to fire you anymore because he can feel that there's a wall hindering him. That's when you're delivered. So once the people experience this wall, that they cannot violate you at ease. They can't think bad about you anymore. They can't feel bad about you. They can't talk bad about you. They can't just ignore you or pretend you're not there. They can't reject you. Once people realize that they can't do any of that, they're going to feel limited in what they consider their freedom. They're going to feel limited, like they're going to feel like you violate them because you can't just treat whatever they see fit. Then they're going to rage, and this rage will expose what they are. Now, during the wilderness, even though you cast out spirit of violence, even though you deliver from violence directly, if you're tricked into their resentment can still come in, harm you, even kill you. It's after you cross the Jordan that you become, as they say it, let me look at that English term for you. Okay, I'm going to look it up for you. Because I want to be sure that you understand what I'm saying, so I want to use the correct English term. So, after crossing the Jordan, it's then that you become unkillable. They can't kill you anymore. So let me look at the English words. Inviolable. Okay. Okay. Inviolable. So, it's only after you graduate into sainthood, you are inviolable. Now, what is inviolable? Now, in political terms, inviolable means the following. People cannot sue you. For example, in the Netherlands is a kingdom. It's a constitutional kingdom. And the House of Orange-Nassau, Amsterdam-Amgaard, is the royal household that governs the country behind the scenes. And King William IV, or as they call him, Willem Alexander, he's the head of state, he's the monarch of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Because it's a kingdom, he stands above the nation and above the government. So when he commits a crime, they cannot sue him nor arrest him. He's inviolable. So one of the ministers will be held accountable instead. So inviolable simply means they cannot charge you, nor can they actually take successful action against you. Now, they may try, but it will fail eventually. Now, inviolable does not mean that you're justified in whatever you do. It simply means people cannot successfully take action against you. Only saints are inviolable. Before you graduate into sainthood, they still have the opportunity to kill you. Now, after crossing the Red Sea, they have to trick you into an early death. Before you cross the Red Sea, some people will get angry, but before you cross the Red Sea, they can still easily kill you. Either by stabbing you, or shooting at you, or by beating you up, or by causing accidents through psychic violence, also by using black magic and witchcraft on you. They can still do all of that. They can still cause you a lot of psychological pain by ignoring you, excluding you. They can do all of that. Once you cross the Red Sea, it's a big wall. The energy field has thickened up. It can't happen anymore. Still in the wilderness, they can still trick you into an early death. Here they can easily violate you. Here they have to trick you into what they want to do to you. When you in sainthood, it's over for them. Now, they either comply with you, but complying with you would require them to admit that they're not entitled to their own will and to will whatever they will. They don't want to do that. That's going to be humiliating for them. But if they resist you, keep fighting you, you have the ability to shut them down, and eventually they're going to exhaust themselves, and they're going to faint, and they're going to fade away. They're going to collapse. So the world doesn't want anyone to reach this state, the state of sainthood. That's why the Roman Catholic Church has a counterfeit sainthood, and the sainthood, according to the Roman Catholic Church, is when you've done something good as a good victim, and after you passed away after centuries, they declare, oh, you were such a good victim, you're holy now. This is sainthood. A saint is a believer operating in power continuously. Now, what's the difference between, some people are going to ask this, so I'm going to explain to you now. What is the difference between a pagan and a believer after they cross the Red Sea? Let me say it like this. The pagan has a demonic covering. That's why violence around them is still there, but they're not directly affected because it bounces off. But the violence is still there. But they're still an unbeliever. They don't have Holy Spirit in them, and have no long-term security. And the term expires after around 2 or 3 years. So every 2 or 3 years, they are in a stress that all of this can catch up with them. The believer, first of all, is saved. This is an unbeliever. But with a believer, it's their own energy field that's strengthened, that's increased, that's become thicker. So this is a natural increase after you cross the Red Sea. This is an artificial covering. This is a natural increase with the aid of the Holy Spirit. That's how your energy field should be anyway, as thick as this. So that's the big difference. So with this, the violence cannot come close unless you yourself keep polluting yourself from the inside. Not from the inside, the pollution can harm you. That's why during the wilderness, you have to be renewed in your mind. The wilderness is the time where the renewal of the mind should take place. Now, I'm not saying that after crossing the Jordan, there may not be some wrong thinking you need to let go of. Let's say that after crossing the Jordan, there may be some strategies or some practicalities that you need to adapt from time to time. But renewal of the mind, so that darkness worked out of your thinking, should happen when you're in the wilderness. Because it's by renewing your mind that you eventually cross the Jordan. Okay? So, let me check. Someone asked me to make a live stream about crossing Jordan on the whiteboard. Well, in the past, when I was in Korea, I made a live stream about crossing Jordan. But now I make it on a whiteboard to illustrate to you directly. For example, a pagan, let's say you have a witch, and she walks around she lives in a ghetto and she goes to college and she wears short skirts and all of that. She puts on makeup, but she's never sexually assaulted and she's never bothered by lustful men and all of that. Why? Because she has a paranormal cover. But the paranormal cover is demonic excrement that's smeared on top of your energy field. So it can only remain effective if you're dysfunctional. That's why she has to be dysfunctional on a sexual level somewhere for it to work. Or she has to be dysfunctional in some emotional area for the charm to remain. So when you take a charm, you will often be informed that you need to put up with some dysfunction. So this witch was up with this dysfunction, that whatever dysfunction it is. Now, the believer after crossing the Red Sea, they would need to remain dysfunctional. They can just be fully healthy on the inside. And this is what works out during the wilderness. It's during the wilderness that you're purged from darkness in your mind and in your energy fields. Past traumas, all that, all process during the wilderness. Now, after you cross Jordan, you can still face trauma in life. As you mean, you're still a vulnerable creature, but you're so advanced that you're on top of everything. So, is this clear to you about the stages of a believer? Let me know in the live chat. Yes. So, understand this well. The Heavenly Father wants all of us believers to reach stage 4, sainthood. Now, what does Satan do? Satan doesn't want anyone to reach sainthood. So Satan wants to offer a counterfeit to sainthood. And the counterfeit to sainthood is church attendance. Listen about what I'm saying. Church attendance is the counterfeit of sainthood. You are told by attending this church, being a member of the church, and coming here every Sunday, or being dedicated to this church, you will be secured in life. So what happens is, you become a believer, and then you don't cross the Red Sea, but you remain in a similar state as before you became born again. Completely vulnerable. But now you go to church, and the pastor at church, who's a warlock most of the time, they're the ones that are putting charms on you, and you end up having a bit more ease in life. So when you, as a believer, don't cross the Red Sea, but you're stuck in church attendance, you are actually similar to a pagan. That's why it's pagan Christianity. Mainstream Christianity is pagan. Why? Because you rely on charms. That's why they need to lay hands on you. That's why you have to come there over and over again. And that's why they never tell you the full truth, so you recover, which also remains dysfunction, because it's pagan. There needs to be dysfunction. The fact you're stuck going to the building every Sunday, that already is a dysfunction. All right? So, that's why it's pagan Christianity. So, that's why someone can go to church for 20 years or 40 years, so that even 50 or 60 years, and they never achieved any dominant influence in their lives at all. All the decades they went to church, they were kept alive, much harm that happened to them, but they never developed any further. And Satan wants to keep all believers in that state. Satan can't prevent people from becoming born again. That's impossible. What Satan can do is hinder us from advancing into sainthood. So mainstream Christianity is designed to prevent your deliverance. But then there are believers who cross the Jordan, who cross the Red Sea, I mean. They cross the Red Sea and are saying something advanced. So that's why the charismatic and Pentecostal movements come in. The Pentecostal and charismatic movements are designed for believers who cross the Red Sea. And Satan wants them to reach sainthood. That's why they keep talking about overcoming sin, keep talking about having to do works, keep spinning around old doctrine from the Old Testament. Why? Because Satan wants you to walk in full power. So you have the common churches, which is just for believers that are just born again. And those believers are sitting together with unbelievers, because church goes by the definition, it's not a believer. So you have a lot of unbelievers that go to church just to get relief. Then you have real believers when you stuck with them. That's bad company. Then you have those Pentecostal and charismatic churches where they are more into the spirit gifts, and believers are trapped in the New Age spirituality, unaware to them. That is to prevent a believer from graduating into sainthood. And once you graduate into sainthood, there is no plan of the enemy to hold you back anymore because you're into sainthood. So, look, now you understand this whole thing about those mega churches. Those mega churches are meant for believers who cross the Red Sea. So when you go to the wilderness, Satan will offer you a church or a congregation that's on the same level as you, but never go beyond into sainthood. Now, after crossing the Jordan, when you're in sainthood, this is how life's going to be. Everything you're going to be ahead of it. All right? If you go to the supermarket, let's say every morning you wake up, you fast and pray, you decree and declare, do all of that, and you send peace out of you. So when you go to the supermarket, you decree peace just before you walk in the supermarket. As you go to the market, you come out. You have to catch an airplane, you send peace out of you in the airplane. So once you cross the Jordan, and you operate in sainthood, everything is on a spiritual level. Now remember, after crossing the Jordan, there will still be resistance, but you'll be so on top and ahead of stuff that all those that are escalating against you will begin to escalate against each other. They'll be so mad and so angry against you that in that madness, without you being aware of it, they begin to stab and kill one another. That's what happened too. Once you cross the Jordan, governments, drug cartels, criminal organizations, satanic cults, they know that you are a threat to them. They know that you have real power. Because remember, the world does not have real power. They don't. The world only has a leverage obtained by violence and trickery. The world or society only has a leverage obtained through violence and trickery. That's all they have. You, as a believer, you have real power. And it's after crossing the Red Sea that you'll be purged when you go to the wilderness, and then you'll reach the full capacity of walking in power. With full capacity, I mean you realize that you completely need to walk in power all the time. So remember, not every believer operates on the same level. There are too many believers who haven't even crossed the Red Sea yet. We have too many of those. Then you have believers who cross the Red Sea, but are stuck in the wilderness in those mega churches. And then you have believers, which are a minority, and one of them who have graduated into sainthood. The world has no, to stand aside, there's no problem with you being a believer, as long as you don't cross the Red Sea. And especially don't want you to cross Jordan. By the way, in live chats, don't just mention things out of the blue. All right? Without any context. But anyway, for those that cross the Jordan, for those that graduate in sainthood, I don't care if you graduated today while watching this live stream, or you graduated 20, 30 years ago, or you graduated a few days back. Once you graduated, know that there is a full-time war against you. Now, when you were in the wilderness, that was just desperation to take you out. But now that you are in the part, now that you are in dominion, there's a constant warfare to hinder your dominion. They can't kill you, they can't exterminate you, they can't shut you down, they can only hinder you. So after you cross the Jordan, the number one trick the world will use against you, the number one trick society will use against you is to clock you with bad company. Bad company doesn't undo the fact that you are graduating in sainthood, but bad company can give you a lot of weight to carry and can give you a lot of things to fight. So bad company is the number one thing the world will push on you after crossing the Jordan. You understand? So, beware of people just popping up in your life out of the blue. Now look, when you're in the wilderness, you're already aware that some companies are good for you. So the enemy will do its best to hook you up with people in a similar condition but who haven't graduated yet. Before you are delivered, the enemy already got you because you already have bad connections anyway. It's when you cross the Jordan, you realize that out of the blue, a lot of dysfunctional and defective people came to surround themselves around you. Now, there are two reasons why that happens. The first reason is those defective and dysfunctional people, they can see that you have that you're dominating. So they want to benefit from your dominating impact. There's nothing wrong with that they want to benefit from it. It's a good thing, sign, because you recognize your power. However, too many of those people, for them, it's all about benefiting from you. It's not about them actually looking for long-term solutions for themselves. So in the long run, they tend to become leeches. And the second reason why they come is because some of them are upset that you reach this position of dominance, and they know that the only thing they can do is hinder you with their presence. So some people will want to push themselves on you just to afflict you with their issues so that you don't move forward. They want to distract you with their issues. So you will have people faking being believers, asking for prayer, asking for counseling. Why? Just to hinder you. It can be that you're advancing financially and economically. And now to prevent you from advancing further financially, they now want to keep calling you, talking to you about their issues. Now, if you have a fellow believer that you're counseling and coaching and you have regular phone calls, that's good. Absolutely. They coach one another. But if someone only calls you over and over again, and you only talk about issues, how they're upset, but they never even show interest in progressing forward, they are just unbelievers and fake being believers, or the satanic agents sent towards you just to hinder you. Coaching believers who are going through the wilderness is a good thing. If they're real believers that are serious about crossing the Jordan, if they're believers who seek comfort in the wilderness, then just move further. If they're unbelievers or satanic agents that are clinging onto you for relief, shake them off of you. Remove yourself peacefully from them and move forward. Don't just cut them off and escalate, just remove You remove yourself from them in a peaceful way. All right. Has any of you who crossed the Jordan experienced the things I just spoke about? Let me know in the live chat, please. Yes, Milan. Milan is saying correctly in the live chat. After a while, these invasions start to flee from you. That's what I want to say next. But I first want to find out if many of you already have experienced all of this. Yes, that is how to avoid you. Because realize that you're continuously in power. And listen to what I'm saying here, saints. I say saints. Now, there are believers watching this live stream who haven't crossed the Jordan yet. Those believers should listen too. But I'm addressing the saints now, the believers who cross the Jordan. Those operate in sainthood. Listen, saints. When people begin to avoid you en masse, rejoice. Because that means that you are safe. That means that you are at the top. That means that you are in the winning position. Now, from time to time, society will try to trick you in some cycle again, but it will be a failure over and over again, but they'll just keep doing it over and over again. Now, for the saints in the live chat, I seldom do this. If you want to give some practical advice to the other believers in the live chat, you can do it now. And I'll just mention what you're saying. So for the saints in the live chat, for those across the Jordan, if you have any practical advice to other believers, mention now in the live chat. I'll just wait, no problem. Indeed, just like Milan is saying over here, before you cross the Jordan, because I've illustrated this here also. Before you cross the Jordan, before you graduate, it's going to be a big fight. It is as if every day there's a conflict. As if everywhere you go, there are people getting angry at you. Everywhere you go, there's some type of trouble coming after you. It's as if you're tired all the time because you may experience chronic fatigue. You may experience a lot of health issues. You may experience a lot of cellular delays. You can have your electronic device won't function out of the blue. Your car may break down. People may forget about you and call you back when you're doing a job interview. You have a lot of things just exploding here and there. When you go to this fiery trial, keep going. And while you go through it, realize that seeking relief is something that belongs to the fallen state. Realize that you need to deal with stuff. And then, once you get to deal with stuff on a spirit level, you graduate. All believers who reach sainthood have gone through all of this. Some believers used to be pagan. So some believers were pagans and became born again, and they went automatically across the Red Sea very within days, because they already understood the spirit world. And those who used to be pagan, their minds knew much quicker because they already have context of how the spirit world works. And by the way, it's mentioned in both the Old Testament and Psalms 149, as well as also mentioned by the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. The saints will judge the world. So if there is if there's child molestation going on, rampant in the community you live. As a saint, you will decree and declare judgments, repercussions upon the perpetrators and upon the enablers, and before you know it, there's collapse in the community. Before you cross the Red Sea, you're not able to do that because you don't walk in full power. You don't walk in your potential. So as a saint, you can put judgment in the community. Not to prove yourself, hey, I'm a saint, watch out for me, no. But you realize that violence and evil needs to be dealt with. So as a saint, either on your own or better together with other believers, you come together and you examine the situation and you execute judgments. You become the courthouse that decides how that something needs to be done, and you make decisions. Or let's say now that you have a nephew who's a target of violence, and you realize that your nephew may encounter people beating him up or whatever. Your nephew is not born again, he's an unbeliever, but you decree peace ahead of your nephew. And suddenly you hear that a lot of guys end up being arrested. Or you realize that suddenly your nephew tells you, Uncle, lately I've noticed that so many people block me on Facebook, or so many people avoid me. And this is what happens. Your nephew is not aware of it, but you've been decreeing and setting peace ahead of your nephew. So all the people who had bad intention towards him, they faced a sentence from you in the form of repercussions. So now they realize, we can't get too close to this guy. Some of you, saints, you have relatives who are still alive today because you've been interceding for them. Some of you, the only reason why your parents or your children or the people around you didn't die yet is because you were interceding for them. Some of the people out there who were walking around breathing should have been dead by now, or they should have been in horrible conditions, but he had a saint somewhere interceding on their behalf. Some of the adults out there should have been sexually molested as children, and should have been worse off today. But because it was a saint that intervened in the community, the sexual molestation did not happen. I'm telling you, the saints judge the world. We don't condemn the world condemns itself, we just judge. We make decisions to advance health, sanity, wealth, and safety. Okay, this is what judgment is. I'm going to write it down for you. Judgment is about advancing. Hold on. I have to zoom out. It's about advancing health, sanity, safety, and abundance or wealth in the community. This was righteous judgment is. So righteous judgment, which is something only the saints can execute. If you didn't cross the Red Sea, if you're not delivered yet, or you just crossed the Red Sea and you're in the wilderness, I don't recommend you doing this. Because you only have authority here, but you don't have the power to operate in that authority yet. So righteous judgment is when the saints take action in the spirit world and also take physical steps combined with it, because faith without works is physical steps, faith without works that simply means with the faith you need to combine it with physical steps in reality. So righteous judgment is the saints executing consequences on the community to enforce health, sanity, safety, and abundance on the long term. This is something only the saints can do. The world has pagan courthouses and prisons, No paid portage, no person can do this. Only believers can do it. All right. So let me see how long I'm here. All right. All right. Let's see if I get some questions in the live chat. By the way, if you have questions related to this topic, please ask them right now. Thank you very much. Oh wait, it's another tip over here from Milan. Let me mention it. Milan also said, they will try to provoke you like hell, to ruin your reputation. They can say, look at him, he's a criminal anyway. Don't fall for it, don't give in to provocations. That's a big one. Yes, it's true. And indeed, their timelines will run out and the violence will bounce back, absolutely. So you have to keep moving forward. Anyway, if you have questions about this topic, please let me know in the live chat. SP. What do you mean with, look, the valley of the shadow of death is simply the stagnant cycles of ruin of society. It simply means that when you are surrounded by, if society retaliates against you, that's the valley of the shadow of death. Why? Because that's what you go through when you go to the wilderness. After you cross the Red Sea, you will go through the valley of the shadow of death, as David said, because it's then that the darkness seeks to take you out. And it's then when you pass through that, you cross the Jordan. All right. Any other questions? Let me know. All right. Anyway, I didn't get any questions. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. The replay this live stream of this process by YouTube. Download it, share it with other people. Keep walking by faith. Keep agreeing with Christ, because He's Lord, I'm not. Keep agreeing with Him. Be at peace, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.